All right, it is Tuesday, May 10th, and as you can see, we're not in the offices. We are at Digital Dealer in Tampa.
Woo!
All right, we don't have our music in our ears like we usually do.
We don't have it in there. We're working. We're running hard. We got the whole crew. You can't see, but we've got like a whole crew. It looks like a pirate ship came on up in Digital Dealer on the show floor. Already having fun this morning. We had a good breakfast.
That's key. If you don't know anything about traveling with Kyle and I, breakfast is a very high priority. It's what we went to sleep thinking about.
Exactly.
Literally
thinking about, because I think we both had a granola bar last night for dinner.
We did.
But
well,
it's all good.
If you can call it dinner at midnight. We had an amazing time at the Family Reunion Remix. If you were there, thank you. It was so good to see you and spend some time with you. I'm sure we will see you again today on the show floor. If you weren't there, you were very well missed, and we hope to see you at the next event. We have a lot of content that we shot at the event that we are going to produce, and we're going to push it out through the social media channels. So if you don't follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok's probably not going to be a lot of that content on TikTok. No. But on YouTube, we're going to push as much of that out to you as fast as we can so that you can be a part of the action. Yeah. What was your big takeaway from last night? We didn't talk about this. I mean, we talked about a lot of things after the event. We didn't have much of a voice. We don't have much more right now.
Not much still even now. No, I think there was a couple of themes for me. One was just everybody that kind of came up to me just felt so encouraged and energized. It was this feeling of like, hey, look, there wasn't a lot of like programming, or I didn't come here to quote unquote learn something from a speaker, but there was an element of energy of being in a place together, going, there's something happening here, and I'm just glad I'm a part of it. I'm glad that there's something going on that says we have to do this together, and that was the energy. And then with all the people that we were kind of doing the interviews from and engaging with, like particularly for the content, was this thread of the necessity to have an attention toward a people economy, right? An economy of like, how do we treat our people? How do we engage our people, whether it be industry partners or dealers or anyone, that's the important thing that we need to be thinking about in our industry with chip shortages and with, inventory
I didn't
lows.
hear chip shortage uttered one time.
Not one time, right?
Not once at all.
Yeah, and even with, craziness in inventory, craziness in used car pricing, all of that didn't come up through all of our conversations. It was all about how are we managing people well? How are we taking care of our people so that as whatever bumps, whatever turns, whatever maneuvers have to happen, that our people are set up to win. And that thread is really pervasive through a lot of conversations in our industry right now.
Met a ton of new people last night.
I know.
I was actually surprised by how many new people I met and literally got to tell the Asotu story to.
Yeah.
Like someone invited them, they showed up, and they were like, what is this?
Right.
And so we got to tell them.
We met this guy that's been in the industry had been in the
6
industry
hours.
for 6 hours.
Absolutely. We interviewed him. We're going to push that out. We're like, how long have you been in automotive? He's like 6 hours. This is the first thing he did in automotive. And we told him, listen, your objectivity is very perishable, and the next 6 months of you in automotive is the most valuable you're ever going to be to us.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we're big advocates of bringing people from outside automotive to inside. He's in the tech space, so it's great to get another mindset that has worked in retail and other spaces to come and now look at automotive and ask questions like, why do we do it that way?
Why do we do it that way?
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, don't be afraid to ask, why do we do it that way? Because, we do things in a routine.
Yep.
And it's easy to get in the routine and be like, well, this is just what we do.
Well, I actually had a couple conversations last night, and I'm even noticing around the floor that there's some really new players in the space, and players, especially from a tech side, that haven't been in automotive before,
right?
But are either seeing opportunity or recognizing that they want to be a part of the industry. And people that are coming, it's not like new tech companies that are being birthed in the industry, but ones that are looking from the outside in going, there's something about that we need to be a part of, both from a tech perspective and from an energy perspective. And that was apparent last night and on the show floor here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about a little news today.
Let's get into it.
Because because we had a party doesn't mean the world stops.
Right, exactly.
It stopped for us for like a day or and a half as we were planning for it. But some of the things that we've been talking about for the last 6 months, I feel like they've all come to a bit of a head.
Kind of like...
They've all come to a head, I feel like, in the last 72 hours for some reason.
Exactly.
And, we were talking to our senior writer, Chris. He's like, there's just so much to talk about right now. Sometimes in the news cycle, there's not. Right now, there's a lot. First, we want to talk about Rivian, mainly Ford selling its shares. All of it is like, what, $190 million shares or 102 million shares, I think.
Yeah.
We have notes, but it's not in front of us.
So they're selling off 8 million shares, which
8
is
million shares,
which is a massive portion of their shares, right?
Oh, they're not selling them all.
I don't think selling them all. But what's interesting about that is what we're seeing is Rivian is down nearly 21% for the year, and for Ford, I think in January we were looking at a lot of like their Q4 and their annual results.
No, they're down 78% for the year.
They're down 78%.
They dropped 21% just when Ford sold their shares.
That's what it was. Okay, so when we were looking back at last year, so much of Ford's bottom line actually came from the Rivian profits and the IPO and all of that happening, right? And so to see Ford go from look at all of the revenue and the bottom line and everything we reported last year coming from this massive opportunity, celebrating these wins, to just a few months later going, hey, look, we got to get out of this while they're getting still halfway good.
Yeah,
right?
Rivian announced after this, obviously they're navigating the situation. Some other people also announced that they're going to be selling their shares, and so there's a correction happening. Rivian said they still expect to produce 25,000 vehicles this year, which is actually less than half of what they said they thought they were going to be able to produce last year. So also not great news.
Yeah, well, and we've been talking a lot about how a lot of these EV companies have in the past, or at least the last couple of years, been managing their supply chain just because they're managing the complete supply chain.
Yep.
But even Tesla coming out yesterday saying in Shanghai they had to go to reduced hours because
first time we've heard that from them.
Yeah, so to see some of these EV manufacturers start to be impacted in similar ways that a lot of the ICE manufacturers and legacy OEMs have been over the past 2 years, it's kind of an interesting new story in that, and to see how that impacts deliveries and that ever important share price, which is still just a voting machine on their capacity, right? We talk about the voting machine or the weighing machine a lot, and we're starting to see that the voting machine is having to turn into a weighing machine because it's saying, hey, look, can you actually deliver on all the hope?
Yeah, and what we mean by that, if you're just kind of new to the podcast, we think of stock prices or publicly traded companies as a weighing machine, like a scale, which is based on earnings and profits, right? That's where the fundamentals of business drive the stock price. But once it gets to kind of a pop culture mentality, right? People thinking it's going to do good, well, then it becomes a voting machine where just popular vote on what you think is going to happen is what drives the price. So we're watching that shift from Rivian, like you're saying, exactly. It was a big time voting machine. A lot of people were dropping and saying yes, 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 price was going up. But now the fundamentals are coming out, and the weighing machine is always where you can't stay a voting machine forever.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Well, speaking of voting machines,
we don't have the segue. Stop.
Segue time. Come on, Brian Ortega, when we need him.
We need him here.
Yeah, he needs like a little mix table right there.
He needs to drive on a Segway across behind us. That's how it should actually go. That's how it actually should go.
That's how it should have been. No, a big vote has been had by the general public to vote up F1 over the last couple of years. I'm telling you what. Look, here's the thing.
I don't know how many selfies, Instagram stories of people I follow were in Miami for F1. Brian Benstock, two of our investors were in Miami.
It's unbelievable. You've got automotive news crawling all over the place. It was wild to see the variants in sponsors from crypto all the way to Salesforce, right? And everybody trying to get in the game in Miami. And so, we put in the show notes that it kind of exceeded and failed expectations all at the same time because me closer to F1 now, having gotten excited about it the way everyone else did with the Drive to Survive series with Netflix, you see this energy around it where everybody's heading there. It's a who's who, right? Everybody's saying this is the place to be.
Just became
the
popular.
Energy around the party met and exceeded expectations, right? It was everything that Miami could have to offer. Yep. But from an actual enthusiast F1 and especially driver's side, it was actually a big letdown.
Kind of terrible, right? Yeah. The asphalt was crappy. They said it felt like gravel.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I guess if you think about it, it's just there's blacktop. We can have an F1 race.
Exactly.
That's not how it works.
It's not. Yeah, there's a whole...
Well, apparently.
Apparently, exactly. So there's this whole, enthusiast thing that's kind of being lost in some of the surge within, the party mentality, right? And, I think just watching how trends start to dig into brand a little bit, and having to keep the sanctity of the brand while staying on trend and keeping the
Your
attention,
car on,
right?
and while keeping like the craft of the race.
Yep.
Right, which is so technical.
Yes,
they're so
exactly.
dialed in. The engines are technical, right? The traction is technical. That I just said.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Say sorry.
Hey Siri.
Can't do it again.
No,
Never
man,
can do
it knew
again.
you didn't want to do it. That's so funny. So, one thing I saw that was very interesting. So, Netflix, Drive to Survive, that changed the whole game for the sport in the United States. You know what ESPN paid for the television rights?
Oh no, I didn't.
Only $5 million.
No way.
It's about to go to $75 million.
Yeah,
which still seems kind
done.
of low, granted, on how much attention there is around this. But yeah, I was like $5 million.
Wow.
Smart.
Yeah.
And as they're selling the rights, actually, they're starting to. Another interesting thing is that they're deciding whether or not they want to go broadcast for the rights.
Right.
Or do they want to go, like we've been seeing, NFL is like going to Amazon or Netflix or somebody. I mean, Netflix makes a lot of sense.
That would be really smart for Netflix to
you
get
think
into
they're trying
that
to
live.
sports and like that seems like a no-brainer.
It would be a no-brainer.
But,
so, I mean, it's a study in brand for me, right? And I think that there's still it's still so early in its total brand reveal to the general public, but whoever can capitalize on this, like whoever lands that contract, whoever continues, they just came out, Netflix said they're doing 2 more seasons of the Drive to Survive. And I think if Miami, if Austin, if U.S., conglomerates and larger companies can capitalize on this, there's a lot to be had leaning on this brand that's been built by Netflix so well.
We talk about the conversion of retail automotive and popular culture and how this point in time is this convergence of EVs and new automotive technology. It's a convergence of, blockchain technology, right, where people are just paying more attention to vehicles and kind of finance than ever before that I can remember. And I think retail automotive has a massive opportunity to show everyone what they're about. And since Crypto.com was the sponsor of F1, I think we need to talk about what happened with cryptocurrency over the last 3 days. Like,
holy cow.
Actually, you were surprised by this morning. You're like, oh my gosh, because we were looking at the numbers this morning. You're like, it's all the way down to 31,000. I was like, it was below. It was like 29 something yesterday. You were like,
it's unbelievable.
So a massive crash, it's lost half of its value, I think, from its 52-week high.
It's unbelievable.
And so, like, everyone's saying, well, what's going on? There's nowhere to hide. Stock market's down. Inflation is up. Now crypto is down. Yeah. Right? What do you think? Is the story for real?
Well, I mean, what's interesting is I think early it was like, hey, crypto can be something that doesn't get
a shelter.
Like it can be
like
a shelter
gold,
for your money.
Right? Guess what? Gold hasn't moved.
Exactly. Yeah. And saying like, hey, it's outside of the stock market. It's outside of what the general public is doing. Decentralized, right? But what we're really seeing is that it's taking a very, very similar path to anything that's technology.
The rest of the economy.
The rest of the economy, and especially the technology sector,
Absolutely.
right? And so for those people that are heavy in crypto and that were heavy in this kind of like decentralized place of doing business, we're really realizing it's just another tech player in stock. So I think that's going to change how investment portfolios
for now,
shape
especially
up over the next couple years.
This is the first time this has happened.
Yep.
I mean, crypto's taken a couple dips, but never has it been tied to a macroeconomic factor.
Right. Exactly.
Right now, so it really is like it's totally uncharted territory. Right. Some people are buying. A lot of people are panicking. Right.
Yeah.
It's like that. Was that TurboTax? Right. Guy's like looking at. He's like, I'm a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. Right. So there's a lot of not millionaires right now.
Unfortunately, that might not have been a great commercial for crypto overall, right? Because they ran that commercial everywhere, and it's like that's the fear. That's the hype and the fear all happening in the same time.
Well, I don't know, but then TurboTax did that. They kind of normalized it.
Right.
And they're like, that's okay.
That's just a thing.
That's
just
fine.
happens,
we'll just
right?
make sure your tax exposure is right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not
never
giving any tax
underestimate
advice.
what others can do to your brand without having your brand being front and center, right?
Yeah.
And so, you think about like just Bitcoin or or ETH just being a brand front and center and not waiting on other brands to kind of speak into that and tell them what they are. That's what's driven what's happened around.
Crypto, I mean, it's a long-term play.
Without
My thought is that, like, the technology behind it, the utility behind it is really something that differentiates crypto from anything else.
Yeah, without a
especially
doubt.
Ethereum, smart contracts. I think it's going to be part of retail automotive. I think it's going to be NFTs, part of pop culture.
It will
right?
be.
Again, I think so. Everything we're talking about, Ford and Rivian, EVs. We're talking about F1 and the popularity and the rise around that. We're talking about cryptocurrency. All of these elements are converging at this time in retail automotive, which means, bring this all the way back to all the dealers and industry partners we see, to our event last night. We need each other.
Yes.
We need each other. Vendor partners and dealers need each other to figure out the best way to put it together for their store, in their community, in their market.
Yep.
Because one thing that F1, a Netflix series can't have, and cryptocurrency can't have, and one Rivian, your one EV publicly traded company can't have, is a broad sense of community.
Yes, exactly. And not just that, but the tentacles to reach all the way through not just your own community, but the communities across the US. And that's what retail automotive has so unique to any of these brands. It's not built on some series. It's built on the groundwork. It's built on the ground game of doing this day in and day out, tangibly working in and amongst the communities and being a community center and the mayor of all of our communities almost.
For sure.
Such an opportunity for automotive. So just don't lose sight of that. We're encouraging people. We're like we say, if this is the first time you listen to the podcast, like, we're drawing a big circle. We want everyone involved in doing this thing, pushing back, banding together, and saying that retail automotive is the absolute best way to deliver and service vehicles in the U.S.
So if you were there last night, great. Make sure you check out the email at asodu.com. And if you're a vendor, if you're a dealer, make sure you invite all the other people in your organization to actually get on the email list, because more conversations like this, deeper and deeper into our organization, is actually how the impact happens. It's actually how the change happens. And if you ask me, I'm going to put my investment and my votes, and the scales, I think, are always going to be tipped in the favor of the community, and automotive has shown over 100 years that it knows how to do that in any situation.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow, and I don't know what state we'll be in tomorrow.
Who knows?
but we'll be here, and we'll have a microphone, and we'll see you then.